So, welcome to our City Year pre-interview prep session. Just wanted to go over the agenda for today. We're going to do some introductions and talk about City Year culture. We'll do some basic City Year 101, talk about the interview, and then next steps as well. And we're going to have some breakout rooms at the end so that you can join your site-specific group and get to know more specific information about the site that you have applied to. So we want to introduce ourselves before we get started. My name is Brenna Eaton. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the service year director for the West region, but I'm the Denver advisor. I do sit in Denver, Colorado, and that is where I am from. Molly, unfortunately, had a last minute change of plans, so she is not joining us today, but she is our service year advisor for Los Angeles. And if you're here from LA, you'll join my breakout room at the end. And then I will pass it over to Hawa.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hawa, and I'm the service year advisor for Sacramento and San Jose. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm also a City Year alum. I served with City Year Los Angeles in 2015, 2016 as a core member, and then 2016, 2017 as a team leader. And thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. My name's Bear. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I am the service year advisor overseeing our Seattle and Detroit sites.
And then Inez and Erica from some of our Midwest sites are not joining us today, but we do have Christina Bowerman. Her pronouns are she, her, hers, and she's the service year advisor for Cleveland and Columbus. And she'll be leading a breakout room as well. And she's doing some back end stuff for us right now, like admitting everybody from the waiting room. So if you have questions about Cleveland and Columbus, Christina will be able to answer those. So before we get started, we wanted to introduce just a little bit of City Year culture to you. We have a really strong culture at City Year. Sometimes people call it a little bit campy, but it's there to encourage building community and getting to know others. So we like to kick off many of our calls with what we call JRAs or JARs, joys, appreciations, and ripples. So a joy is pretty self-explanatory, something that happened today or recently that maybe brings joy. And appreciation is appreciation to someone or something else that maybe helped you out or has done something else to support you. A ripple would be something you've done or saw someone else do that rippled down to somebody else and inspired change. So as an example, if you were tutoring a student in math class and later that day you noticed them teaching a technique that you shared with them to another peer or student, that would be a ripple. Something that you did inspired them to pass it forward. Shout out is a shout out. And then a window is that we know service can be challenging. This year has been challenging. And so a window is just a window into your life and how you're doing if it's something you want to share. So just to kick us off, if anybody has joys, appreciations, or ripples they'd like to share, we have time for about 3 of them. I can kick us off. It's pretty sunny and warm here in Denver, so that's been a huge joy for me.
I can share one joy is that it's Friday. I'm excited for the weekend. I can also share a window, which is, as Brenna explained, a little bit of insight into stuff that's going on in my life. I may have messed up my links, so I think I may have both Detroit and Seattle folks on this call. So when it comes time to switch into breakout rooms, if you're from Detroit or Seattle, you'll be in my breakout room. So I apologize. It can be a little confusing. We usually split the 2 sites up, but that's the window into how my day is going. So if you're from Detroit or Seattle, serving with Detroit or Seattle, you'll be with me.
I can go. I would say I want to share an appreciation, actually, the reference that I submitted, in order to, fulfill my application. She was one of my past supervisors. I worked with her for over 2 years, and she's just like a sunshine of a person. I really, I really care for her a lot. And I'm glad that I was able to, get a chance to know her and get a chance to work with her and just be able to, take some of the principles that she uses, just like throughout her life, and apply them to my own life, because they've actually really been like, one, really helpful and just really fulfilling, but also just that, we have a relationship, and I really, yeah, I really appreciate her.
I'll go next. So for this shout out, I have a question. The shout out, we're just shouting out a person.
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it. That one's pretty easy.
I'd like to shout out one of my closest friends. I guess it's kind of a shout out and appreciation. So I guess a twofer. But she reminded me the other day of how forgiving of a person I can be. And she was like asking me, how do I do it so easily? And I was like, I don't know. It's just something that comes naturally to me. But I learned that I'm more so of an analytic person. So she helped me discover that. And that was something that I hadn't really realized before. So shout out to her.
Love it. Thank you for those of you willing to jump in and share and just share a little bit about yourself and your life. We really appreciate it. So the objective for today's session is that you should feel prepared for your upcoming interview. Like I mentioned at the beginning, we're going to go over more information about City Year, how to prepare for your interview, and what to expect next. And I am going to pass it over to Hawa.
Hey y'all. So before I jump into just sharing some City Year information, we're going to watch the video, and it's about a student that has worked with City Year in, I believe it's City Year San Jose, but you'll hear a little bit about her experience, and then you'll hear from her core member as well. So if you could go ahead and play the video, Brenna, that would be great.
I think I'm a better person because of City Year and how they helped me.
Brenna,
Amy's story is one of resilience and of understanding that barriers exist. We don't spin fairy tales here. We understand that there are systematic oppressions that our kids face.
It's really crazy in my house because my mom has to focus about everyone. And we have 8 kids, my cousin and my mom and dad.
We lost our house about 2 years ago. And ever since then, it's been hard on her.
Amy has a lot of emotions, just like all kids, and sometimes they become a little bit too much for the classroom.
I wouldn't want to do my homework, and I wouldn't really behave well. I would get out of my seat, yell in class, and not follow direction.
Her and her family have their struggles, and I think there's a lot of pent-up aggression around life being a little unfair.
As far as I know, Amy spent time in the principal's office going back since kindergarten.
When I got those calls because Amy was getting in trouble, it kind of made me feel discouraged because all these times I've been telling my daughter that they all have abilities to be good kids.
I feel like that's where City Year does our best job, is in addition to family, in addition to older siblings, we add an extra layer of like protection and support and guidance. There was a plan that we put together for Amy. What we found is that she was very responsive to constant interaction with adults.
She came up to me, she was like, hey, I think we look alike. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, can we tell everyone we're cousins? And I was like, sure.
We say that we're cousins. She's pretty, I'm pretty. She's smart, I'm smart. So that's why we said we're cousins.
That was like the first moment that I broke through with Amy, or she kind of broke through with me. There's a lot of factors that go into why Amy has improved over the course of the past year, and I do think City Year is one of them, especially with our SEL curriculum, learning how to manage anger, emotions, and coping skills. I think that those are all really important things that help students manage their energy, and especially for students like Amy.
Some of the things that help me behave better were by breathing in asking if I could take a little walk. So I started to behave better. My mom not getting phone calls from City Year.
What City Year does best is see the bright spots in every student. We're extra adults on campus who care how they are becoming and developing as a human.
One thing about Amy, like, she's a leader. She'll stand up for what she believes. And she'll also stand up as for other kids, you know? She always does what's best, right? Like, she has a good heart.
Amy led a chip protest.
So our principal had banned hot chips, and it was like a big uproar because all the kids love their Takis and hot Cheetos. She had an idea that if every single student in the program go on strike, then the adults would take notice.
What do we want? We want chips. When do we want it? We want it now.
The most phenomenal thing that I've ever seen from a child.
City Year changed my life because they influenced me to do good. I come to school, I learn, I get good grades, and I make my mom happy.
It meant a lot to me to see this change in Amy because I know my daughter had it inside her all this time. And just to see her take it into action was really a satisfying feeling as a mother.
She's had a tremendous turnaround. I think self-regulation is something that we've talked about with her. When you are in control of your life, you are 100% responsible for every decision you make. What does it look like for you to care enough about the people around you to make a better decision?
And I can influence my little sister to do good so she can do better in class and do better in school too. And then one day she'll pass it on to my little brother and make it go around in the family.
She's incredibly smart. She's incredibly brave. She has so many natural qualities about her that make her such a good leader that I know that she can do anything she wants.
My hope for Amy is for her to go to college, university.
I feel like I am a better person because of City Year and how they impact in my life. Thank you, City Year.
I hope you all enjoyed hearing about Amy's story. So some quick facts about City Year. City Year serves in 350 schools across 29 cities in 21 different sites. Committing to a year of service as a City Year AmeriCorps member means that you'll be serving in a diverse team of 6 to 12 peers in schools, and you'll be pairing students with social, emotional, and academic skills and mindsets to succeed in school and life. You'll also be managing relationships and expectations with teammates, various school staff, partner teachers, students, families, and the school district. As a City Year AmeriCorps member, you'll be receiving robust training to develop your skills in the classroom and beyond. And those experiences can follow in many different formats, including instructor-led sessions, e-learning practical exercises, on-the-job experience, and continual coaching and feedback throughout your service year. And then acquiring these valuable skills that will help you and prepare you to be a leader in your communities and in your careers as well. If we go to the next slide. So this is a really general overview of the day in the life of a City Year AmeriCorps member. Understanding that every school is really different, every city is really different, but generally all of our Corps members arrive at school between 7 and 7:30 to arrive before our students get there. It's a time for your team and your manager to kind of ground yourself on the day and just ease into the morning. And then at the start of the school day, around 8 o'clock, when students start arriving, you'll either be greeting them in the front, you might be, if you're in an elementary school, in the yard, and just greeting students. You might be doing power greeting depending on what school you're at. And power greeting is these chants and little fun, weird things that we do for the students. You have time in the morning to check in with your students. Some schools ask that you make phone calls home to just check in and see if students are arriving to school, but it all again differs from school to school. And then you can kind of expect to be in the classroom from about 9 to 12. That time can look like you spending time in a small group, helping students with their classwork. You might be doing whole classroom activities alongside your teacher. You might be doing a planned intervention of some sort. It really just depends on what you have planned for the day. And then it's time for you all to go to lunch. This is time for you again to connect with your students. As a City Year AmeriCorps member, I know a lot of our elementary school spaces or middle school spaces, you might be out doing various recess activities. Our high schoolers are a little bit too cool to be like running around and playing, but you might be out there just supporting with general like lunch activities. You'll also have time, of course, for your own lunch. And then in the afternoon, it'll look like you are preparing like for the after school program. You might have some time in classes, you might be doing some planning, but again, it differs from school to school. And then the bulk of your afternoon will be kind of spent in the after school space. This will be time where you'll get like a lot more like individual time with your students. And so you'll do some homework help, you might do some enrichment activities. Our core members do various like science experiments or doing like literature things. It really kind of just depends on the curriculum that's happening in your after school space. We do sometimes a lot of like STEAM related activities, but it's again just a space for core members to have extra touch points with their students and really to just engage with them a little more deeply as a mentor and a tutor. The after school program typically ends between like 5:30, sometimes as late as 6. And then by that point, once the students are picked up, you will kind of just like end your day with your team. You'll do a final circle, and that's another space that you'll be with your team, and you'll kind of go over the day, go over any announcements, and then you'll kind of head home. I know this is like a very general day in the life, but it is kind of what you can expect your flow of the day to kind of go like. And then I'll pass it over to Brenna for preparing for your interview.
All right, so we're just going to start with some basic tips. You should plan on your interview taking about roughly 45 minutes to an hour, but definitely set aside the full hour. That way, if you want to ask any questions, you have time for that. And that way, if it does go a little bit long, you're not rushing at the end. So set aside that whole hour just in case. Make sure that you are in a quiet space with limited distractions. If not, it can sometimes be difficult for the interviewer to hear you or you to hear them. So just make sure that you set yourself up in a space that is comfortable for you. Something that we recommend to kind of ground yourself ahead of time, do take a minute to review your application, maybe your short answers, and think about your motivation and why you want to serve with City Year. And in reviewing your resume, try to think about all your different experiences. Something that I like to remind people about is that oftentimes when we're doing interviews, folks want to focus in on particular jobs that might be really similar to City Year. And obviously, we love that. We definitely want to hear about your experience with students or tutoring or kids in general. But sometimes we also want to hear about other opportunities you had. And it's totally okay to share those, even if you worked in retail or a restaurant. There's still different teamwork experiences that you've probably had. So don't feel like you have to limit yourself to specific experiences or jobs. Think about all of the different experiences you've had. Maybe you led out on a committee or a club or group, something like that. And then just like I already mentioned, be prepared to discuss your prior experiences and think about other group work you might have done and things that will prepare you to work on a team of diverse young people in City Year. And when you're thinking through that for your interview, another tip would be try to use I or we statements as much as you can to ground yourself in sort of specific experiences you've had instead of thinking about like big, broad team experiences. Try to give specific examples of things you've done in the past that serve as evidence to support your ability to do this work. And then feel free to take time to think if you need it and let your interviewer know that. Don't feel rushed. Don't feel like you have to give us an answer on the spot. If you need a couple of minutes to think, that's okay. Just let us know. And then definitely prepare questions at the end. You can build a rapport with your interviewer by asking about their experience with City Year. We do have a lot of alumni as well that can share their experience as a core member. And they'll also be able to tell you more about City Year if you have specific questions. So definitely prepare questions at the end, and you will have time to do that. Before we move on, if any of my teammates have anything that they like to do, I'd love for them to share. And we know that you all likely have a lot of interview experience already. So if you have specific tips that you want to share, we'd love to hear those too.
Well, I'll jump in. I actually just took a career readiness class where we talked about this a lot. And one of the biggest things is making sure that you're in a room that doesn't have too much behind you, because your surroundings can be distracting to other people, even if they're not to yourself. And you want the main focus to be you. So.
Absolutely.
Have a copy of the resume right in front of you.
Yeah, totally. So if you're feeling nervous, you can keep yourself on track.
I was gonna say, from my current job right now, I'm actually helping out with interviews for recruitment next year. And something that seems to be important, like when I'm looking at the interview rubric and when I'm doing interviews, is like relating your experiences to like your teammates, like not just like how things impacted you or like how like you developed a skill, but how that like played into like the entire situation with your other teammates and with your job and just within your whole sort of sphere in general.
And I'm actually going to use that as a perfect pivot. Thanks for sharing. You mentioned a rubric, and we are going to talk about some of the competencies that we are looking for. There we go. In a successful core member with City Year. So that is the perfect segue. One of them is commitment to a cause greater than self, and this comes from one of City Year's core values. We believe that committing to a full year, a year of full service as a tutor, mentor, and role model is a personal decision and one that unifies individuals from diverse backgrounds to address shared civic challenges like our education system. So, like I mentioned before, think about what motivates you to serve and how service might be different than just a job. Growth mindset is something that we really value in our students, but also in our core members. We want to know that you believe that anybody can grow and change and develop, and we spend a lot of time during the year doing development trainings to help you grow. So ways that you are excited to grow and learn and lead. Cultural empathy. So like I mentioned before, as a member of City Year, you'll be working with teammates, students, partner teachers, and community members who all come from a variety of backgrounds and experiences. So this may be your first time living and serving in a new community, or maybe it is your own, but think about how you empathize with those that come from different backgrounds than yourself. Relationship building is critical. Like I just said in the last one, you'll be working not only with students and other teammates, as well as your impact manager, who's like your supervisor and leader, but also with a partner teacher. And you're going to be stepping into their classroom. And so you'll want to be able to build a strong relationship with everybody in that community, parents as well. Self-management. As Hawa walked through in that sample schedule, you're going to be managing a lot of different workflows. You're going to be in the classroom working with students, but you're going to be preparing after school. You might be preparing a lesson plan for a small group that you have. So think about ways that you keep yourself organized so that you can on top of all these different projects that you're working on. And then last, solution oriented. The school space can change rapidly. We can't always predict how kids are going to react to different things. So it's important that when you face different challenges and things that come up, you can think through solutions on the fly and find ways to make things better and move forward with you and your teammates and students in mind. So on that note, is anybody willing to share which competency you are interested in developing more throughout the year?
I'll go. I will definitely say being solution oriented. Um, just like being able to take a problem that's in front of you and being able to like you said, think on the fly and figure out how, you can make a situation better or how you can make a change so that just like the situation could be alleviated or, something like that. Just like having those quick, like on your feet thinking skills rather than like needing to like think about a problem, break it down into like, it's like little minuscule pieces and then working through it that way.
I'd like to add on to that if that's okay. I really agree with I would like to focus on being solution oriented just because I don't know if anyone else has felt it, I'm sure someone has that when COVID at least started and still now as we're preparing for the future and as we're in this seminar right now because we're thinking about what we want to do with our futures, the question that pops up in my head a lot is now what? What do we do? And I think COVID was kind of just the biggest curveball in the world. And we're all here because we want to help people. And so it's, trying to figure out the new ways, what works best now in this new environment is what I really want to learn.
I'll say for me, it'll be relationship building because it is something that's very important, and the relationships that we build now are very valuable and important, especially being young adults. And I'll say being in college has helped with that a lot. I have many mentors and just building relationships with my supervisors and other people who I view as leaders, including professors. So I think I would like to develop that more, especially going into a career within education or mental health. I think that's important to build trusting relationships with people. And then, like you said, we're going to be in their classroom. So it's going to be kind of hard maybe for some people at first, but eventually the more trust that you build with others and the more that you get used to the students and the teachers, it can benefit you in the long run. So I think that'll be it for me. I definitely want to work on relationship building and building stronger relationships.
I wanted to add, I think the one competency I'd like to work on is commitment to the cause greater than the self, because I think one of the reasons or one of the things that brought me to AmeriCorps was the idea that I'm getting toward finishing my educational career. I'm a senior in college, and obviously when you're going through the educational system, I was investing a lot in myself and really focusing on my schoolwork and my studies. And not to say that I also wasn't committing myself to something greater, but not to the extent that I would in AmeriCorps. And I think that's something that I'd like to see growth in myself over time.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. And hopefully seeing some of those helps you prepare for what you might want to talk about in your interview. So here's just a quick checklist to reflect on and think about. Be familiar with your strengths and areas of growth, like we just talked about. Be ready to share about your past experiences. And then, are you familiar with City Year's mission and the work that we do? Hopefully this helped with that. And then what questions might you want to ask your interviewer and hear more from them about? And I am going to pass it over to Bear.
Thanks, Brenna. So before we kind of separate, we're just going to go over what you can expect next. So our national admissions counselors will be reaching out to you to schedule an interview. I saw this question in the chat and it was answered, but I'll say it again. Right now, all of our interviews are being done over phone. So you will hear from our national admissions team about an interview and a way to schedule that if you haven't yet. You will have a number of different options for scheduling interviews. So when you're in the portal, any time that's available in there to you, you can schedule. It doesn't have to be with a specific or certain person. It's important to submit your reference as soon as possible. Those were due today. If you didn't get in today, don't freak out. You're fine. Just get that in as soon as possible because we can't make a decision about your application until we do have that reference form submitted. And if for some reason you need to sort of delay making a decision or you're not quite ready yet, we can move your application to the next deadline. And the reference for that deadline is February 12th. So if we also don't get your reference, we will move you to the next deadline so that we can make a decision. And just so all of you know, those of you that are interviewing during this deadline, you'll be notified by February 19th. So that's when you can expect to hear back from us about whether or not you'll be invited to serve. And then if you are invited to serve, we just ask that you respond to that offer by March 5th and let us know whether or not you'd like to accept or decline.